Welcome to Impact Innovations, where bold ideas meet real-world solutions. Join our host, Dr. Angela Gustis, as she dives in deep with thought leaders, change agents, and innovators who are making waves and moving mountains. So buckle up. Let's get ready to laugh, be inspired, and make an impact together.
Haley Davis is the owner of Always Best Care of Parkville. She is a graduate of Auburn University. Haley has worked in various fields over the last 20 years with specialties ranging from in-home services, large-scale operations, and hospitality. Prior to owning her Always Best Care franchise, she spent the last 10 years as a director of operations for a Fortune 500 company. She has lived in Baltimore since 2016 and has immersed herself in the local community, establishing a strong network within the area. Haley has always had a passion for helping others and giving back to the community, which is something that she takes great pride in. Haley and her wife are the proud parents of 3 rescue dogs. In their spare time, they enjoy going to local events in Baltimore and being outside on the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, thank you as always, Miss Charity. I really appreciate you. I am super excited to welcome Miss Haley Davis to hang out with me today and have some good fun and really learn about her journey and everything else. So welcome. Thank you for taking your time to hang out with me today. This is awesome. So I'm just going to jump in and start just picking your brain because I'm excited about it. So, when you and I met a little under a year ago, one of the things that I felt was so fascinating about your story is that you went from working for this Fortune 500 company to, moving into entrepreneurship, which I'm sure is a huge transition. And we're going to really dig into that, because I know I used to love that every 2-week salary, those little things. So we're going to really go in, but talk a little bit about just sort of that initial transition when where was your mind when you first decided, what, I'm going to leave this and I'm going to start my own business? What was that process like?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here today. I think from the outside perspective looking in, it was that this was kind of a quick decision. And entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. And this is not something that truthfully started, I started my company April 15th of last year. Crazy enough to start a company on tax day, not probably the best, but
that's funny. We started April 14th. So we said the same thing, wow, should we have started right this second?
Yeah.
The date worked, so I get it.
And so this wasn't a snap decision. And I think if you're looking back at April 2024, this was kind of a decision I had made September the year prior. And then even in addition to that, I already had owned an LLC through some rental properties. So I had already, kind of started down this journey. And truthfully, what really always sparked my interest was, my mom owned her own business. My brother-in-law owns his own business in different fields than I have. But there was always something about gaining skill sets in the corporate world and then transitioning those skill sets into something for myself. And I always knew I wanted to build something. And so that's where I was really successful in most of my corporate career. And so just kind of started this journey and being a professional in the professional world for, over 20 years. It just felt like I had kind of culminated some skill sets together to make it the right time to jump into entrepreneurship.
So, and this is something I just want to highlight because the work that you did in corporate America is not the work you do in entrepreneurship. So let's dig into that a little bit and how you were able to, figure out what skills you had and how that was transferable, because a lot of people that we work with, or, you have the plumber that's been a plumber and is like, you know what, I could do this myself and start my own business. Or you have the therapist that's like, I want to start my own practice. But your background is not in healthcare. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like.
I don't think it could have been more opposite, frankly, if you're really thinking about it. But, you know, kind of through high school and college and out of college, I was in the hospitality industry and worked for about 10 years in restaurant and event management, and always kind of grew in scale, where I ended up, my last job in the hospitality industry was managing a restaurant on Lake Tahoe. And so it was about a 600-person event, corporate event center, day-to-day restaurant, and we did over 300 weddings a year, being a huge travel destination.
Oh, my.
So it wasn't a small set. And then, you know, decided it was time to move to a little bit different role, got into logistics for about 3 years down in Alabama, and worked for a company that did deliveries, in-home deliveries for your big box retailers. So managed over-the-road teams, had kind of helped them be their own business owners because they were their own owner-operators, and we helped coordinate with your big box retailers to get things to people's homes that they had purchased. That kind of springboarded me into, like you said, working for Amazon back in 2015. Moved up to the Baltimore area, started as a frontline manager in operations, and over the last 10 years worked my way up to director of operations. So I jumped into very different kind of business lines, and then making the decision to go into, you know, my chosen business was an interesting one. I looked at my skill set and I was like, okay, customer service, I feel like I have it. You anticipate needs, you know, you understand you're providing them a service in exchange for their experience, right? And with logistics, it was almost the same thing. You're helping these owner operators build a business, but you have to make the clientele happy. I started to learn about the privilege of going into someone's home. You know, my drivers are going into someone's safe space. Yeah. And to invite anybody into your home, it's a privilege. Like, whether it's just coming over for dinner or a delivery or providing a service, you know, that's where they feel the most safe and also sometimes the most vulnerable, right? Coming into someone's home. So I felt like I got that kind of piece of things. And I think the third part of it, you know, kind of what I say growing up at Amazon as I did, it was about learning about full-scale operations and being an end-to-end business owner. Obviously, I don't own Amazon, but you owned your operation. You owned your team. You owned the planning of it. And you became like this mini business owner in your entity. And that was what they truly expected of you, to be the business owner and to think like a business owner. And so kind of bringing all those together, when I started the journey of what role I wanted to, you know, what business line I wanted to be in, I did work with a franchise consultant, and I talked through, here's what I think I'm good at. Here's where I think I'm don't have a skill set, right? And which just means we just need to bring in somebody with that skill set. And, you know, you talk through what's most important to me. And what I told him specifically was, I want to make an impact. I want to have purpose. I want to feel like I'm providing a service to people that is valuable. And the second thing was, it has to be a good business model. You know, we are here to make a profit to help more people. And the flywheel has to turn in that way, or, you know, you're not going to be able to help people and you're not going to be able to sustain this purposeful venture. So,
interesting.
You know, he came back and he brought a few different, you know, areas. He knows I love dogs, and he's like, do you want to open up a dog training center? And I'm like, I can't train my 3 dogs. I do not want, I can't sign off that I have that skill set. And he said, do you want to open like a health food breakfast place? And I was like, no, because I really don't eat healthy. And then the third of the 4 options was, well, what about a gym? And I'm like, yeah, I love sports. I love being outdoors, but I haven't been to a gym in a while. And I said, okay, what else you got? And he goes, well, what about in-home care for seniors? And I said, okay, tell me more, right? Because it was something that I really, truly didn't know much about. And I said, well, customer service, okay. I can run a business. That's a service model. I've done that, obviously in other areas. And he goes, you have a purpose, right? You're helping people at a very vulnerable time where they have to make decisions that, unfortunately, instead of logic-based, are more emotional-based. And when you don't have a plan, they can get into really bad decisions.
Absolutely.
Especially at a very critical and meaningful time in someone's life. So I said, tell me more. And it just kind of kept kind of going that direction.
Wow.
And specifically went with the model, in the franchise model, Always Best Care, because of a few different differentiators from a perspective of their business model versus some others in the same line of business. And
wow.
Just knowing I needed to beef up my clinical and hospital side and medical side, but I felt really solid about the service and the business side of things.
Wow, that is really interesting. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've never had an opportunity to sit down with somebody who had gone the franchise model. And so in my mind, I think that people are like, okay, I want to open a McDonald's. I'm going to go and open a McDonald's. Like, I've never really thought about that there are these consultants that sit with you to try to assess what kind of franchise works for you. So that's really, really cool. That's really interesting. But I do want to go back to something that you talked about that I think is super, super powerful that I know I didn't realize was such a thing in corporate America. You talked about how the way that things were set up, you were really taught to look at your location or your operation as your own business. And in many ways taught the good, bad, and ugly of what that looks like. And so, a lot of industries don't take the time to teach people those things and, really hone in on that idea that this is your business. So it really does, I'm assuming, help to prepare you in many ways for being a business owner. With that said, as a small business owner, have you been able to, and I know that you're just about to hit your 1 year point, or you just hit your 1 year point. So I know it's relatively early in, but have you thought about how do you create that same culture so that you are cultivating the entrepreneurial aspect within your directors and your leadership team as you grow your business, and what that would look like? 'Cause, well, leadership development is my thing, right? And, so I would really be interested to know like how you're thinking about bringing that into the work that you do with your team and what that would even look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. We've been officially operational since April, officially a corporation since LLC since April of 2024. But we truly started operations in November. First is what I would say is kind of our launch date for the operations side. And, currently growing from it being a business of me to, now 30 plus caregivers. And I've got an office staff of 3 with my nurse making 4. And so
this is awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. And, it's been interesting kind of the journey of trying to fit all the pieces together. And, there's definitely been 1 or 2 people that have come and gone, even in that 6 months as you're growing. And I'm a true believer that you have to give people ownership and what I call swim lanes. This is your swim lane. This is what you're going to own. And I want you to make decisions. I was having a conversation with one of my team members, and she was asking me, I call it reporting the news. And I was like, I don't need you to report the news to me, right? I need you to think critically about the problem. And I said, what are the options we have, right? And she was like, well, we could do this, this, and this. I go, which one do you think is best for the customer and the caregiver? Well, probably this one. And I said, then your decision, right? Like, so I want to focus on asking the questions to lead them to the answers that they already know. And in understanding the difference was from a prior role where she hadn't had that opportunity. She was being
Yeah.
told, come to me. So it's really like critically thinking about how you're making your decisions
Mm-hmm.
and not so much the outcome.
Yeah.
The outcome will come. We're going to
Yeah.
make the right decision. We're going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But I can't make every decision. And that's what I try to tell my team. I want you to make decisions. I'm your escalation point.
Yeah.
I'm not your decision-making point.
Yeah.
And if we and we set up things where this is your standard work. Again, I know I steal from previous roles, but this is the standard work that we're going to create day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can handle the exceptions as needed on the one-off basis based upon underlying principles. What's best for the customer, what's best for the caregiver, and then we'll think about what's best for the business, right? From a monetarial standpoint.
Yeah.
Because even though we may not make $1 off the customer we just served for that day, we got the client taken care of, the caregiver's employed. Let's figure out how to kind of reroute this the next time so we don't come into this situation. But, you know, those are the guiding principles that I want my team to think through.
That is, I like that. What's best for the customer, what's best for the caregiver, and then what's best for the company. And when you focus that way, you know, and we talk about that here at CMAG, like, you know, we have to take care of our clients. We have to take care of our team. And when you do that work, organically, the business is taken care of, you know, but if you try to put the business first, it does not work. Like it just doesn't, because then people
sustainable.
don't feel like they are the focus of the business. You know, it's all about customer service, and our staff are our customers. And if people don't recognize that, that's huge. And, you know, one other thing you just sort of talked about and went through but didn't really highlight that I think is super important is sometimes we have to get people to unlearn how it is in other organizations. I remember I still have these conversations. Now, if we have a meeting or you're meeting with a client or something like that, if you're going to be late, you need to let somebody know. But if you're running 5, maybe 10 minutes late getting to the office because you hit some traffic, it's really not that big a deal. You know what I mean? And so sort of getting people, like something that simple, for some people, it takes months for them to get comfortable, and some even longer. And we have, of course, a group chat with the leadership team, right? And so one person put in there, I'm running about 5 minutes late. And I'm just like, so because I'm a goofball, I wrote, that's not acceptable. Because I'm just like, dude, like it's 5 minutes, it's really okay. But, you know, even just something that simple is so different for people because they've worked in environments where it was like, if you hadn't clocked in right on time, that's an occurrence and all those types of things where I'm like, people are people, crap happens, you know, anything could happen. Right. And so I walked out the door and had 2 packages from Amazon, and I was like, oh, wait, I wonder if that's such and such. And so I opened the packages, and then I was late. And, you know, but it was like 5 minutes, like, you know what I mean? So letting people feel that and developing that culture where people can be themselves and can be a part of the decisions and can come to you with solutions, not just problems, is huge, because there are unfortunately leaders out there that want you to come to them, but that's their own that's their own stuff that they have not dealt with. I oftentimes talk about how when you get into a power position, i.e. leadership, like whatever kind of power, whether it's power within your family, power within your, you know, friend group, whatever, you know, whenever you're in a power position, but especially when you rise to power as an entrepreneur, there's this thing that happens that any stuff that you've had, or as I oftentimes talk about, any muck from when you were a kid or when you were just younger in general, if you haven't dealt with it, it will manifest in your leadership, no matter what. And so when people lead in a way where they don't want people making decisions and stuff like that, it's sort of like, so what happened in your life that you don't feel comfortable allowing people, you know, why do you have to be in that type of control? You know, and that's also not sustainable. That's how leaders end up burning out. So it's really cool to hear that you've created this culture, especially even just so early in, to really encourage people to make decisions. I mean, that's phenomenal. So you've talked about, you know, in less than a year, gone from a company of one to a company of 30 plus people. You know, tell us a little bit about what that journey, because I know there's a dance, especially in hiring. I always say it's a dance, because you don't want to hire too early that people don't have hours, but you don't want to wait too long that you have a client that comes to you and you're like, oh, I can't serve you for 3 weeks because we still need to find somebody for this position.
Yeah.
Talk about like that growth and that explosion, to be honest with you, because that's a lot in a short period of time. What was that like?
Yeah, it kind of going back to your point, there's like kind of two schools of thought. You know, there's the Bezos thought where take care of customers and work backwards, and then you have kind of like the Richard Branson models, like take care of your employees and they'll take care of your customers. And I think it's like you said, when it's the client and the caregiver, it's almost you got to take care of both of them. It's like 1 and 1A, and then sometimes 1 and 1A might change. And so you know when going through the recruiting process, and everybody said your biggest problem is going to be finding enough caregivers. That was the one thing they said.
People talk about that a lot.
You know,
healthcare staffing is a whole thing.
Yeah. And fortunately enough, I kind of set up the model where I had already pre-planned like orientations. Like we're going to onboard this many people. Here's the target. And I just kind of kept continuing to have them at least, you know, in the beginning it was probably once a week for like 4 weeks till we kind of got in the rotation and people learned about us. Because remember, Always Best Care hasn't had a franchise in Baltimore. So nobody knew who we were. And nobody knew who I was, right? I haven't been in the world for a long time. And so it was going to take a little bit longer to recruit. And so I think just having that consistent target that we're going to have at least 2 orientations a month, we're going to try to bring on at least 8 caregivers a month, and then we can alter those numbers, maybe 1 more orientation a month, or maybe instead of 8 a month, we try to go to 10, and we could always fluctuate that number. But what we couldn't do is scramble, to your point, that we're not going to have enough people. And in part of like, we call it capacity planning at Amazon, but when you're trying to gauge, do we have enough people? You're always trying to look out in that 6 to 8 week horizon at a minimum to make sure you're okay. And you know, the other thing, there's some times where you get a client and they're like, "Can you do it?" And my answer is, "Yeah, we'll figure it out." And I think that's kind of what's been important to making sure that my caregivers know very upfront, especially in that first 3 or 4 months. You know, one, I can't promise you a full-time job.
Yeah.
Whatever your other side gig is or your main gig, keep it. Keep it. I am not trying to stop you from paying your bills. And like you said, if you can't give them work for a couple weeks, they're going to go find something that can pay their bills.
Absolutely.
And I understood that very clearly. And I was like, just keep what you're doing and being that first transparent. And then as we started to build trust, and this is what I tell them, you know, you're building trust with me that I'm going to get you hours and I'm going to give you a great environment to work with great families. And I'm trusting you to take care of the families, to be on time, provide great service. And as we kind of build that trust, I really got to know kind of the core of my caregivers. And then they just started referring people to me.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, I would say probably at least a third are referrals of my 30, where, you know, we get to then be a little more selective because we've seen through proxy probably how their performance is going to be. And so again, as we kind of keep growing that base, and, you know, I think just again, kind of evolving, you know, your caregiver, I'll say roster, probably not the right word, but caregiver roster, you know, you always got to kind of continue to evolve, because some people want to work overnight. Some people only want to work weekends. And you have to have that capacity of being ready for, you know, I would say 2 extra 24/7 clients at any point, because you never know when the call is going to come in.
So, and it really is, like I said earlier, it's a dance to try to manage how many clients you have, versus how many clients that you're seeking, and I'm sure marketing is a huge piece. And again, because I'm not as familiar with the franchise space, so when it comes to marketing, so are you responsible for, like how have you been able to grow so quickly with clients and staff and things of that sort? Do you have to do all the marketing? Does the franchise model help with the Like, how does that work?
Yeah. The franchise model, I think, gives you the playbook.
Okay.
And, that's what's incredibly important, especially since if maybe I was in the medical field prior to opening this, I maybe could have gone independent and figured out my policies and procedures and everything. But having that I would say lack of that clinical knowledge, healthcare knowledge, it was important that I did go with the franchise model because they are the one-stop shop for all operations. I tell them, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want something wrong. I need you to keep me out of jail.
I say I'm too cute for jail.
Yeah, I will not thrive in it. I promise you. And so I'm like, I always ask, like, what am I doing wrong? Is this okay? Is this not okay? So I think that's really important. They also have an advertising fund that again, other franchisees have paid into, which then helps me so that we can spend ad dollars, on social media or local advertising or SEO searches. And so that way you're kind of getting your name out there as an established business with a plug and play model instead of, Fairfax, Virginia or North Carolina. All they're doing is just changing it out for my location in Parkville in the Baltimore area. And they provide marketing materials for you, and you can just print them off. Everything's, paid for. They'll send you a box with all your collateral for the month. But I would say the biggest thing is twofold in regards to kind of the local aspect of it is one, I went out and just started talking to people. I picked up the phone. I went to provider meetings and, just go meet people. And lo and behold, one person is going to take a liking to you, right? You're going to make that connection with one or two people. And I could say, you got to cast that big net and you'll catch something that will lead to another casting something. So that was important from like a local perspective. And I think I spent very early on bringing a marketer in that went out to all the community and was proactively marketing. And so, where I saw other franchisees were like, well, I'm going to wait till the business allows it. And I'm like, I'm going to invest in this because we're going to try to make a splash. And I think those two things early on have helped kind of catapult me a little faster than maybe some of the others that I've seen.
And, I think you keep just coming up with all these different awesome nuggets. And, I see all the time where people don't spend marketing money, right? Now, and it depends, like, for example, I think of some of the healthcare folks that we've worked with, especially like in the behavioral health space or in the healthcare space where they came into this with a caseload, right? And so it was a little bit different for them. So they were able to start from a word of mouth kind of a space. But, spending money, having someone that's helping with sales and marketing early on really does make a huge difference. And, it's one of those, it's really one of those things that because most of us don't know what marketing is, right?
Yeah.
Like you talk about SEOs and all those things where it's become a part of our normal language as entrepreneurs. Because if you don't know what an SEO is, it's search engine optimization. If you don't know what an SEO is, you have not even scratched the surface in digital marketing because that's one of the first things you really learn about. And, I've come across a lot of organizations that don't have any marketing, professionals that work with them. And some have, and I'll use me even as an example. When we first started CMAG, when we were first starting, we were just doing the consulting work, but we also had a network. But when we started CMAG Health Solutions, it was a very different undertaking, even though, as everyone knows, the CM of CMAG is Kathy Mays, and she comes from a healthcare background. So we had some, network there. And my background in behavioral health, we had some network. But there was a lot that we needed to learn and a lot that we needed to figure out. And that marketing piece is something that we didn't realize that we had to invest in as early. And so now that we have invested in it and understand it in the last couple of years, it really has shifted, how things move, right? And so there are things and that's some of the stuff that I think is so important in these kinds of conversations to help those people that are looking at, even with a franchise model, because yes, it's plug and play, but if you're not willing to do some things even outside of that, you may not take off as fast.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. And I don't want to give anybody the illusion that it's a playbook and that's all you got to do. And it's going to be just, the money will roll in.
Work itself.
That's not how it is. And the franchise model truly can't dictate your business because then they get into that co-employment legality where they can't tell you what to do because you're your own business entity. And so what they do is really give you, I would say, like a plate of 3 or 4 options with your marketing company that, our advertising dollars, we all pool and the big system helps each other. They're going to give you a few insurance providers you get to pick from. They're going to set it up with reputable people that they've used in the past. And you as a business owner then get to make that decision with pre-vetted suppliers and vendors. And, I think it's very important that, because you're probably like me every day, you get 15 or 20 marketing emails and you're like, I do not want to sell my business. I started it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sell it, or have you thought about this search engine or this? And I'm like, so as quickly as you can try to market, you can quickly throw those dollars in the trash can if you're not careful.
Oh yeah.
And
we've done that.
Yeah, I think everybody has. Well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you throw it up against the wall, and you're like, "Oh God."
Yeah, and
we
gotta do that again.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had one person that we had hired to do some marketing stuff for us, and halfway through the contract, we're just like, I don't see anything happening. And it wasn't pretty. Yeah. But again, those things happen, or just understanding. And this was something that we had to learn early in, is engaging with a marketing company. There's one thing to have them develop a marketing plan. It's a whole nother thing for them to do the marketing. Right. And so people oftentimes don't understand the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And so
you can be an architect, but that doesn't mean you're going to build the house.
Exactly. And it's a different fee.
Yeah. No, even put your add-on fee.
No. Yeah. Where's your hard hat, buddy? And so we had hired somebody to do some marketing stuff, and they put together this beautiful plan, and this is your target audience, and this is this, and this is that. And I'm like, okay. And who's supposed to do it? So like marketing is something that it's a beast in itself, right? And a lot of people don't realize how much goes into it. A lot of people don't understand how expensive it is. But the return on investment with the right marketing team is huge. And figuring out what can you do in-house and what you can't.
Yes.
And the right marketing team will allow you to do things in-house, and then they'll do things for you. And I've shared this with people before. If someone says to you, oh, well, we'll do X, Y, and Z, and it comes in a package, but you know how to do X, and they're not willing to take it out of the package, that's not a reputable company. Because, you have to be willing to do certain things. And as consultants, if I say, hey, these are the policies that we see that you need, and the person says, okay, I'll write those policies, will you review them? Absolutely. Then that's how we'll draw up the scope of work.
Yep.
Versus some people are like, can you write this? And that's fine too. But we're going to work with you, because some people, they can't afford, or they have the skill set, so it doesn't make sense for them to use those resources to pay us to do it, right?
I agree.
So like really understanding what you can do, what you have the capacity to do, and the marketing plan that we got years ago, we're just now at a point where we have the capacity in this last couple of years to really implement some of those things. Because we just didn't have the team to do it, And so marketing is a real it's a beast. And it's one of those things that, you know, we don't know, most times we don't know about. If you're a therapist, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're if you're a mechanic, if you're a plumber, none of those courses teach you about marketing. None.
And it's funny because little known facts about me, I actually, my degree from Auburn is in marketing.
Shut up.
I know, crazy. But
I did not know.
some years ago, we were learning about end caps at a retail, store.
Right.
The internet was just coming on board, and so
You're making
I've
me
been
feel
out
real
of it.
old. Can we not talk about the fact that we were grown when the internet came on board? Can we not?
I know, right? And so like even though I have that degree and my brain thinks like that, what's been done in 20 years, like I can't
whole
go
new
do
world.
that. Like I have some great marketing ideas, but then also it's not always the right time for your business to lay that out. Like you said, like I want to do this, this, and this as, for my company, but it's just not the right time. It's not the right budget.
Yeah.
And that's going to take away from my other priorities of growing the business. And so it's a time allocation thing with your marketing. And
Absolutely.
as
And you
well.
have to be ready for the explosion.
yeah,
You know, my godfather, hi, Barry, if you're listening. My godfather, I remember he said to Kathy and I, this was before we started CMAG Health Solutions, which we started back in 2019. And I was talking through the business model and what we were doing. He's an entrepreneur and a brilliant business guy. And I was talking to him about the business model that we were creating and our business plan and all those kinds of things. And he was like, Ange, I'm really proud of you, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and said, are you ready for the explosion? So in my mind, I'm like, let's do it. And he was like, pause. Are you really ready for the explosion? Because businesses fail because they exploded too fast. And so to your point, you have to be careful about what you're doing and do it in a way that's strategic so that you don't explode too fast and you don't look up and you have 50 clients knocking on your door today and you're having to turn 48 of them away. That would look really bad.
Or even worse, you take those 40 clients on and do a bad job.
Okay.
And
Exactly.
And that's where you say that balance. It's kind of like the three-legged stool or four-legged stool, depending on whatever type of business you're in, from an HR, finance, and operations. Well, for this role or industry, it's more like, okay, you brought on your marketer, which I've brought on actually 2 in January of this year.
Oh, wow.
And took a leap on 2 people. I liked them both, couldn't decide. And I said, well, why not? Let's go all in. And I'm thinking, okay, wait, in 30 to 45 days, something's going to happen. They're going to start to get in those referrals, those families. And so while they were out teaching them how to do it and them getting their feet on the ground, it's bringing, okay, now we're going to up the caregiver orientation number to make sure we're balanced. And then it's like 30 days after that, now I need someone in the office to make sure that schedule's going seamlessly, once we get everybody onboarded. So, yeah, you have to think
how your brain thinks, dude. Like, it's so clear that you have such an operations brain.
I've love operations.
Oh, my heavens.
And trying to figure
it.
out the problems and the planning and to the best of your ability and be ready when it hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right. And but
because it does.
If you don't have that plan in place when it hits the fan, you're not going to be even remotely ready to pivot.
Yeah.
And like you said, working for a big company, I helped manage the 3rd largest building for Amazon and 5,000 people. It was fantastic. And you had to have the standard work in place because when something broke, okay, how can we pivot? How can we reduce, the downtime? How can you obviously protect Amazon? All of that.
I'm 100% cutting you off.
That's
because I need to just acknowledge what you just said, that you manage. Now, Amazon's a beast. Like,
it can be, yes.
And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
for sure, me too.
It's huge. You manage the 3rd largest facility?
Volume by building for a calendar year that we shipped out
Holy
the third
crap.
most packages worldwide. Yeah. It was a big year. It was a big
Wow.
year.
So I'm also going to acknowledge and pause on, I'm guessing there aren't a lot of women that have or that are in that kind of a role, especially at that scale.
The people in my role or equivalent was about 10% or less.
Wow.
Yep. So,
You're a beast.
well, I don't know about that. I'd like to think I put in a lot of work, but I'll tell you the opportunities I was given, and earned. I'll say I earned them for sure.
I'm sure.
But I had some great people that put me in crucible moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate them for that because they took a chance on me and, they saw something and I said, yeah, let's go do it. And I think people will go, well, why are you successful at Amazon? I said, because I always said yes. Even though I couldn't figure out how to do it, I didn't know. My bosses felt comfortable enough to give me the hardest problem in multiple different buildings. And I said, yeah, give me the hardest problem. Give me the thing nobody wants to do. And even if I only improved it 60 or 80%.
Only.
Oh, yeah, whatever. Instead of hitting your 100% goal.
No, I get it.
Like, it's off their plate, right? My job was to make my boss's job easier.
Yeah.
And, my job is to make my team's job easier in any way I can. And things tend to work out. So, yeah, it was a fun ride. We had a bridge that collapsed in our backyard a couple years ago with the Key Bridge and various different things when you're managing
and I never
a small
even
city.
thought about the timeline of when you were there. I didn't even think about the fact that you were there
when the bridge
when
collapsed.
the bridge collapsed. Holy crap.
Crazy enough, one of my operations managers was running the building and they heard it because it was we were literally on Spurs Point right on the peninsula.
Right.
So there were two big buildings down there. She got in her car and went over and saw it like right before first responders were there. And she was calling my counterpart and myself, sending us the alerts before anybody else really even knew about it.
Wow.
And so luckily, none of our employees were truthfully impacted. Unfortunately, I believe the 6 people lost their lives, but no, it could have been a lot worse. And we're thankful that it wasn't. But I mean, that was an interesting time to start getting some emails from some very, high level people, like whatever you need, how can we help you? And and luckily the only thing that was really impacted was about 30-minute delay going through different city routes. And, and the biggest thing was about 30 to 40% of our associates used that bridge to get to work. So they were impacted.
Okay.
Daily commute about 15, 20 minutes longer, and we helped kind of move people around as needed. But yeah, that was a biggie.
A little something to tap. A little something. I can't say enough about how amazing listening to how you think through the growth of your business and looking at the numbers of it. But, it seems like you've really found that beautiful balance between paying attention to the numbers and the operations, but also developing the culture of caring for each other, caring for the team, caring for the clients that you work with. Oftentimes you find people that are super operational people, that are all day numbers people, and then you find the warm and fuzzy people who are like, and like I often talk about the whole brain model, and it's like one of those assessments where you end up being either a red, a yellow, a blue, or a green.
Yeah.
And so it's like the blue and greens are like the more logistics and operations, HR folks, CPAs, that kind of thing. And the reds are the warm and fuzzy people, and the yellows are the visionaries. I'm being very simplistic. It's way more complex than that. But that's sort of kind of, and so to find somebody that's definitely got that blue-green brain all day long, but then still having that red space where you really do care about the people, and finding that balance and being able to develop that as a way you've built your business and developed your business is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it really is. And to hear you breaking down how you look at, okay, my marketing team is doing X, We have why happening. This is how many staff we need. This is how often we need orientation. I mean, all those things and putting all those things in place is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit because clearly you're not afraid of working hard.
I like it.
You know, I mean, I get it. I mean, if you're afraid of working hard, you're not built to be an entrepreneur. That's just par for the course.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit, and we often ask in conversations about self-care. Like, what are the things that you do to keep yourself balanced so that you're not in your office 100% of the time or, you know, eating all 3 of your meals at the office, which all of us have done it at minimum many times. You know what I mean? But all jokes aside, like, how do you find that balance for yourself?
Truthfully, I don't know if I do a good job on the day in and day out. I really, I do like to work. I have a very, I think, understanding spouse and partner, and
That's awesome.
you know, and I think even though I don't have children, I still have commitments at home, just like anybody
course.
does. And I think, you know, with family and friends, and I think where my head goes to is it's always seasons. You're not going to have the perfect balance this week or this month, but as long as you can see that the season is going to end and you're working towards putting things in place, you know, perfect example, probably 2 or 3 months ago, you know, as we were going through different seasons, even in 6 and 7 months, right? It's not even, we haven't even been through a calendar year yet, but the first season was, oh my gosh, it's me. And if a caregiver can't go to shift because car broke down or childcare issue, I'm going. And so I would go.
Yeah.
And now the next season is, which we were at hopefully a couple months ago, is now I've got a part-time person that can help me with scheduling and things of that nature. We're getting more caregivers in the mix. And then now we're at a season where I do have the person in office that's helping me with new clients coming in, working with the families. And she's my weekend coverage. And now she can, if she needs to fill in a shift, she can do it versus me, and do it, frankly, way much better than I'll ever do. And so it's just as we see the seasons, as long as I'm developing fail-proof plans that I don't have to be the decision maker, I'm buying back my time and, like you said, my personal time. And I think the other thing is, you know, having a hard rule for myself. If my spouse is off work that day and it's a normal business work day for me, I'm getting out of there at 2 and 3 and trying to be at least a little bit intentional about what we're going to do that day.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Wednesday, tomorrow is going to be taco night at the house. So I think it's just,
I love it.
It's just being intentional in the moments on a week-to-week basis, because you are going to have to go on a Saturday to meet a family or do things like that. But my whole goal as an entrepreneur is to have the business run itself, right? I need to make the strategic year-long decisions and visions, like you said. Like you said, kind of working through that model, being the different leader for the different roles you have to play in your business. And if I'm continually, and that's what I saw, like, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, is I was in the weeds, I was doing everything, and it's not sustainable. And especially if you're growing your business and at any day you want to sell it, if they plucked me out and the business fell apart, your valuation goes into the toilet.
Absolutely.
So that's always kind of the forefront of my mind, you know, 10, 15 years down the road, if I ever do want to sell, I can't be doing the day to day. Nor is that, I think, going to fulfill me in 10 or 15 years.
That's
doing
real.
the same thing.
Yeah. I always say that people, you know, I've never held the same position other than running CMAG for more than 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Now, I've worked for the same company
Same.
for way more than that, but I feel like after 3.5 years, I figured out what's wrong. I put stuff in place. And I'm ready to go into something else. And because
100%.
I'm not a maintenance person.
No.
Once I figured it out and put stuff in place, I'm ready to do something else. And
give me that next problem.
Exactly. And so, you know, CMAG fulfills that, because I'm like, all right, that's working. So what are we going to do?
let's add on this
Let's
line.
do that. Exactly. And so that's how we've gotten to where we are. Good, bad, and ugly. That's how we've gotten to where we are. And so, with all of that said, you already mentioned, if you decide that you want to sell, like what are your, you've done absolutely amazing work with your organization. And as I said, it's growing by leaps and bounds, even in just such a short period of time. But like, what's next for Haley? Like, where are you trying to go with this? Like, what are some of the things that you have in place?
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about like any type of business, and even though I'll kind of draw some parallels to CMAG, is in our role we want different payer sources. In your role, you have different business entities, and that's the thing that I really liked about Always Best Care is you can do the in-home care, but we also do placement services into communities, and nobody else has those two together. They're either one or the other. So I want to continue to develop those and that's why one of the reasons why I chose Always Best Care is we're going to continue to develop the in-home care side. We're going to continue to develop the placement side. I was fortunate enough to acquire another territory for Always Best Care, and now have the ability to serve the VA clients.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
So thank you. I'm super excited.
Awesome.
That was end of May. So very excited about that. And
that's really cool.
Passionate about, because there's no way to really get in the VA in our business because it's so saturated.
Yeah.
But this allowed me to. And so I think for the next probably 2 to 3 years is to continue to expand those payer sources and kind of like individual entities, thinking through it like that, even though they're very intertwined.
Yeah.
But ultimately, growing the business, I mean, there's obviously goals that we want to have. We want to employ more people. We want to do it the right way. We want to increase their wages to make sure that they have a living wage as much as we can. So those are always the inner goals of our business. And I think the outer goals for me is, hey, why not grow this thing to 8 figures?
Hey.
And I, you're going to see me shoot for the stars, hit the moon. You're still in a really good spot.
100%.
So
that's awesome.
So yeah, why not?
And one thing I just want to circle back to that I don't think I talked about earlier. You made the real leap. There's some people and I'm including myself. I worked for someone else for years and ran CMAG and built CMAG and got it to the point where it could afford me, to come into the company full time. And we were at year 8 and now we're in 11. So I've only been working for CMAG full time for 3 years.
I don't even know if I knew that.
I was working for someone else, even if it was just part-time, remotely and all those kinds of things. So I was here, but still I was working for other organizations and stuff like that. And I remember there was a moment where I was just like, it's been so, this is crazy, yada, yada, yada. And I'm trying to balance working for someone else, this, that, and the other. And I did a program through NASDAQ. And I was down in Charlotte, North Carolina for a conference that NASDAQ put together. And there was a woman there, I want to say she was from Penn State, if memory serves. And she was talking about the research that most women entrepreneurs work for another company for the first 8 years of business. And I remember sitting there because it was when I hit my 8 years and when I was transitioning to working for CMAG full time. And it was just like, oh, this is part of the journey.
Yeah.
And it was hard. Not to say it's not still hard, but it was very hard to work for another organization and run CMAG. And Kathy and I used to joke and say we were the hardest working volunteers for CMAG because we literally we didn't take a salary out of the company, so we could just keep pouring right back into the company for it to grow. So we had staff on payroll. 10, 15 staff on payroll before I started working for the organization and getting a paycheck. And that was still a scary leap, right?
Yeah.
that was still a scary leap. And so, but you took the real leap. So I jumped off the diving board at about 6 feet. You, on the other hand, jumped off the board at like 50 feet. So, and I always tell people, initially I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do because I tried once, right? And, and I'm always very transparent about this. I tried once. I had about 6-8 months worth of bills saved up and did everything the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And after about 6 to 8 months, I was like, oh, God, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's a reason most businesses don't make it a year.
Money. I need some money. You know what I mean? And so I went back out and I was able to do some remote work and this, that, and the other. And I had a colleague who actually hired me to work for him and also understood that I was an entrepreneur and basically set it up where as long as I met my deliverables and as long as I hit, as long as I was in the meetings I needed to be in, as long as I met my timelines for deliverables, if I had to work Sunday night or Monday morning or whatever, I was able to balance it because he was so open and allowed me to work when I needed to work. And that's really what I was able to do for that last couple of years. And it was, game changer for me to be able to pour back into the company and be here physically, even when I had to work on other things and I was working 80 and 70 hours and stuff like that a week. But anyway, I say all of that to say, I share my story and, the good, bad, and ugly of it. If you could give someone a couple of tips of some of the things that they should do to prepare for that 50-foot leap that you made, I'll talk about the 6-foot leap,
Yeah.
But the 50-foot leap, like, okay, I'm leaving my Fortune 500 job with a Fortune 500 salary, and I'm gonna jump in head first. So if you had maybe 3 or 4 things that you would say, aside from saving money, because I'm sure that's number one on the list. You got to have some money ready, because if you think you're gonna have a full salary walking in the door,
it's not gonna happen.
It just doesn't work like that.
I think you have to have access to money.
Okay.
So whether it is your personal funds or, investors and you're the operator, you have to have access to funds. And whatever you think you're going to need, double it. Just double it, the minimum.
That's real.
So I think from a financial standpoint, I was very fortunate, obviously, that I didn't have to go borrow into... and there's all sorts of crazy things out there from a financial perspective. Be extremely careful. If you do not have a financial advisor and someone that's going to talk you through things, let me tell you, I was at the point of signing on a small business loan. I literally was 2-3 conversations away, and the small business percentage is typically the Wall Street prime plus whatever the bank takes. So you're looking at 11%.
Yeah.
There is zero chance I would have ever made a profit at any point in probably 18 months unless I did not do that.
Yeah.
And so I spoke with my financial advisor, and who I've known for an extremely long time. And I just said, what do you think? And he goes, you have enough. You don't need it. Don't get it.
Yeah.
And again, with the corporate office as well, you want to use that resource because they have models. They know exactly what the average costs are going to be, and they'll give you that good range. And they were pretty spot on. And so having that vetted source of my financial advisor, what they were saying, letting him look at it before I signed any deal, and then making the decision that even though it's scary because it's my money going into it.
Yeah.
Either way, it's my money going into it because you're going to have to pay it back.
You have to guarantee that loan. So if you can't, then you can't pay it. I mean, if the business can't pay it, you got to pay it.
Then there was this conversation with Rob's, which is a rollover your 401k of qualified money. And some people are doing it. And my financial advisor goes, do not do that. Like, just stay away from it. You're leveraging qualified future money that's already paid taxes and you've already paid in.
Yeah.
And if this goes south, that's your safety net when you're retired and, put on another 20 or 30 years. So I think having a good financial plan or access to finances, and then whatever you think it's going to be, just double it. That's a rough estimate. I think the other thing is, like I said, I was fortunate to have a few investors in my entrepreneurs in my family. And I spoke with them and they just said, you're ready. Like, we know that you have what it takes. This is a good business model that's going to have a growing market segment. And I think, not only your family support, but your spouse's support.
Yeah.
If they're not fully in, even though, my wife, Jess, is not in the business or fully ingrained in it,
but
she trusts that I know what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Even though half the time I don't, but we won't tell her that. But it's this sense of belief. And that would be the third thing. You have to have a sense of belief that's unwavering. And, that this is going to be successful. I told people, I said, well, we have two options with this business. We're not going to fail, and it's going to be successful. And I'm like, wow, those are what you have to tell yourself.
Yeah.
And know that your true north direction is going to be to succeed. We just, if we fail 1 month, we just haven't figured it out yet. And I think those are some of the lessons, whether it be growing up playing sports or being in operation where something's going to go wrong. You get over it.
Yeah.
I love Colin Powell, get mad, get over it, and then get over it. That's one of my favorite quotes. So,
I love it.
I think it's just having that unwavering support from your family, a sound financial plan, and then you have to have the belief it's not going to fail. The only option is it's going to succeed. And if it doesn't, maybe 1 month, we just got to figure out the different way.
That is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we couldn't have wrapped up any better than that. It's so perfect. And the amount of information that you've shared, and I really truly appreciate your transparency, and willingness to sort of just share the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's all of those things. But I love that you're so humble about it, but you are so brilliant and understand what it takes to make this thing work in a way that you just don't see entrepreneurs sort of wrapping their arms around so early in. So whether it's from seeing family members in business, your experience in corporate, all combined, who knows? But what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so excited to have had you here so that we could talk about this and people can learn from this. So thank you for taking the time out of your crazy busy schedule to hang out with me for this past hour. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you a million. This is so great because if I was still sitting in prior roles, I would have never got to meet you and this other community now. So it's really cool to be with you guys.
So let's wrap by just telling people how folks can get in contact if they're looking for in-home care for family members, if they're looking for, placement assistance for assisted living, how do folks get in touch with you guys and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You can head to our website, alwaysbestcare.com /Parkville. You can give us a call at the office at 410-952-7206. And just one piece of advice, start early. Don't wait till the last minute. Plan, although it may be an uncomfortable conversation or topic, it's always good to plan early to make things as smooth as possible.
Awesome. Well, again, Haley, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you. Yes, and for those of you that know our Chief Happiness Officer, Duchess, I wish I could take a picture of her right now. She is on her back, smiling, just as happy
wrapping
as
it
up. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We look forward to another episode. Have an absolutely phenomenal day.
Thank you for listening. Join us next time for more Impact Innovations.